So I am a real estate guy. I'm predominantly a developer, though I buy value add multifamily buildings and I hold them all across the United States. And I do not invest in any one particular market or any one particular state. I'm known for being the syndicator in the real estate market that has assets in the most number of states. So as I do not know of any syndicators that have active assets in 10 states in the US. And people might say, why 10 states? And the answer is, why not? As far as I'm concerned, it's likely that at some point that number will go up instead of going down. And I think if you use a data-driven approach, you'll notice that markets change from time to time. And there's no doubt that there's some markets in the US that are truly great. Like San Francisco is a truly great market, but it may not be a great investment market. Dallas has been a truly great market and a truly great investment market for a long time, but that's changing. I don't think that Dallas is where the money is today. I think it's Austin. I think it's New Braunfels. So what I noticed was that great cities remained great cities and you could make money there, but they may not be exactly the maximum opportunity, the best risk reward benefit. That changed all the time. So this climate change seed, it actually came from my obsession. I've had this obsession, and there's about 50,000 people on the web following this obsession of mine, which is to figure out the best cities and neighborhoods in the US to invest in and the metrics and the data that goes behind that. And I do 4 or 5 webinars a year on multifamilyu.com that basically provides my feedback and my gut feeling on these. And you're welcome to watch these. They're all free. And when I'm doing that, I'm looking for, okay, what are the metrics that really control my investors' short-term, mid-term, long-term profit? So I have a $500 million portfolio, 22 projects in 10 states. And on each of those, I'm looking at, okay, what's affecting the local market? What's affecting the state? What's affecting the country? What's affecting short-term, mid-term, long-term? So when I was looking at metrics, one of the metrics that kept coming up is climate risk. And climate risk is not considered a short-term metric. It's considered both a medium-term. And in the medium-term bucket, it's one of the big ones. In the long-term one, it's considered by far the largest. So think of climate risk being the 800-pound or 8,000-pound gorilla when you look at long-term risk to real estate. And so there's a few things I want to reel off that I think will get this conversation going. Number one, most savvy people, and we're not talking about politicians because climate change is a politicized area. Getting information from the Republican Party or the Democratic Party is a very bad thing to do. From what I can see, these people are paying, right, either believers or non-believers to write a bunch of stuff, which is completely biased. But as you can see, some areas are more politicized than others. So if you look at top 5 politicized areas in the US, I'm sure climate shows up in that list. So I look at everything that they've output with skepticism, which means that I basically can't read any of their stuff. So what I'm left with is to follow the money. Climate change is it's a big deal. And even if you don't believe in climate change, I think everybody on the podcast knows the damage that New York and Miami and other places have taken because of climate, maybe not climate change, but climate. So you know that it's big dollars. Where there's big dollars with a big billion or a big trillion, there are going to be people following the dollars and following the profit. So there's reports there. So I've been looking at that data. And when I look at that data, the first thing that appears to me is very few people in the US understand just how devastating this impact is, even if it's not caused by hydrocarbons. So what I realized, to my absolute astonishment, is that as an investor that's looking to preserve and grow capital, and as an investor that's looking for the next gold rush, so we've had some amazing gold rushes in the last 20 years, Amazon.com, the internet, Microsoft, and Google, and then we'd had gold rushes in real estate from 2008 onwards. When you're looking for that next gold rush, it helps you. Maybe you're a conservative investor, but who wouldn't want to invest conservatively in California in the 1850s when the gold rush was underway? It just makes your life easier. It makes things more better. So when I'm looking at that gold rush, there's a climate-related gold rush that is inevitable. And it's inevitable regardless of whether you believe that climate change is caused by fossil fuels. So if you take the entire argument of whether you believe in fossil fuels causing climate change or not, you keep it aside, right? You put on your non-believer hat. Even then, the data is incredibly compelling, and it's very clear to anybody that looks at it that there's a lot of money to be lost and a lot of money to be made. And that's where I started my climate risk journey. And the second thing, so that was the first thing, that you don't have to believe in climate change to profit from it. The second piece was it's very obvious that real estate is actually the hardest hit market because of climate risk. So once again, everybody on this podcast will agree with me that hurricanes are getting stronger because it only takes you 2 minutes on the NOAA website to look at how many hurricanes we've had compared to how many hurricanes we used to have. So again, what causes it? We separate that, we leave it to the politicians to decide, but it's clear that something is happening. And whether we control it or not, it is going to affect us. And the area that will be affected the most is real estate across the world, right? It's real estate across the world. It's real estate in the United States. And so I looked at it and I said, so if we are the vertical, if we are the industry that is the most affected, why isn't anybody talking about this? And the answer is people are talking about it. People are making decisions. People are making huge decisions that affect everyone that's listening to this podcast, but they're not in the public realm because those people are terrified by what's happening with the politicians. So they are quietly making very large decisions, very fundamental decisions that are going to change real estate investing, but they're not talking about it publicly because they're afraid that either the Democrats are going to hate them or the Republicans are going to hate them, or likely both parties will hate them. So I started digging into the changes that are happening in the background, multi-trillion-dollar changes in the way that portfolios are being handled. And those are the insights that I've now started sharing with people and started doing webinars.